All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining our Hitchhikers exclusive webinar on Answers Headless React. This is the fourth part of our Winter 21 release headline series, which we've been so excited to do. And as a reminder, you can find all of these webinars available on our YouTube page. And this is one that I've been looking forward to because it's something that involves a lot of custom work. We're going to get some time with one of our developer evangelists, Aaron Pavlik, and we're going to get some time with Ariana talking through an intro to Headless React as well. So this is a really cool webinar. We are super excited on the topic. We're super excited on the new feature and all of the amazing things that you'll be able to build with Headless React. So as I mentioned, first, Ariana is going to take us through what Answers Headless React is, why it's valuable, and what some potential use cases are. We're going to move into a demo where Aaron is going to take us through a live experience that he's built using Headless React and show some of the power of that feature. And then finally, we'll turn to what's next for Hitchhikers now that we've finished this series, and we'll turn it over to some Q&A with the experts. We've also got product manager Rose Grant on the line, so you'll definitely want to stick around for that. And if you have any questions, definitely plug them into the Q&A feature in Zoom. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ariana.
Thanks, Nick. So glad to see everyone here. Thanks so much for coming. Today, we are going to talk about Answers Headless React. This is just one of the many new features that came out in our Winter 21 release that came on for early access this past December and is now available for general availability as of January. These past couple of weeks, we've been taking you through some of the headline items from that release in our webinar series. So we've talked about listings modernization, some updates to the data connectors framework, the consumer authorization and authentication. And then today we're going to go through Answers Headless React, which is a brand new way to be able to build custom front ends for your Answers experiences. Answers Headless React under the hood actually involves a couple of different sub features, all of which are very important. Answers Headless on its own is a new library that gives you all of the important business logic you would need to power a search experience on the front end, as well as state management. And that couples with a series of React bindings that make it even easier to create that custom search experience in React. Another really cool thing about Answers Headless React right now is that it can also help you get access to some of the latest and greatest in front end features. Like, for example, as another element of our Winter 21 release, we released visual autocomplete. If you're building with Answers Headless React, that's an augmentation to the existing autocomplete framework that Answers provides, where you can try and predict what it is that a customer is typing into your search bar before they finish typing. Without visual autocomplete, you can already do that by completing it with words or phrases that come from your knowledge graph or popular searches or even hard-coded prompts. But visual autocomplete allows you to take it a step further and suggest things like previous searches, categories, as well as full cards for individual entities. So someone searching for iPhones, being able to surface actual images and price information of those product entities, or maybe some FAQs that they can interact with right from the search bar to make your Answers experience even easier to use and more interactive. That's just one of the many things that you could potentially build with Answers Headless React. Now, Answers Headless React is just part of the larger stack of different ways that you can build a front end for your Answers experience to make it custom to fit your brand and your use case. And there are options depending on whether the person building the experience is anything from a low-code administrator who wants to primarily point and click and work with something out of the box, all the way up to a developer looking to get their hands dirty and really get into the nitty-gritty of defining the UI very specifically. You may be already familiar with Jambo, our static site generator, as well as the Hitchhikers theme. That gives you an out-of-the-box option that very easily spins up the front end of the Answers experience and allows you to make basic branding changes like your colors, your fonts, your card layouts. But in many cases, you may want to take it a step further and build something a little bit more custom. You've always had the option to build directly off the Answers API or Answers core, build the UI pretty much from scratch. But now with Answers Headless React, as well as the React Site Search Starter, it's even easier to build a custom UI for your Answers experience exactly the way you want it, but also get up and running very quickly. You may be wondering, what is React? Why would I want to build my Answers front-end experience using it? For a little bit of context there, React is a JavaScript library that is very popular for building user interfaces. Some interesting background, it actually originated as an open source project for Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, and since then has become a very popular means of building user interfaces across the web. Its popularity is due to a number of things, but in particular, it's declarative, which can make the code needed to write your UI simple and easy to debug. It's component-based, that allows you to build encapsulated components that work independently and then add them together to build a more complex UI. You can imagine how this is really useful for something with a fairly complicated UI, like scrolling down your Facebook page. You have your feed, which is a component. Your friends list can be a component. Maybe you have multiple chat windows open that are all individual components. It's really easy with React to build different components that you piece together like that. And have them be able to run independently and even have multiple versions, say like multiple chat screens going at once. So it's really useful when you're trying to build and augment a UI. You can also learn it once and write it anywhere. It's easy to develop new features without having to rewrite existing code. And you can also use React in the context of a mobile app by using React Native. With that in mind, there's quite a few use cases for Answers Headless React. Some listed here, but there's even more that you can imagine. The first and most straightforward, of course, is if you have a website that is React-based. This is a great way to add AI-powered search to that site and make it even easier for your end users to find all the valuable content on your site. Maybe you're hosting information about your FAQs or articles and blogs, or maybe you're storing your location information on that site. Adding a search bar with Answers Headless React is a really great way to make that information accessible and searchable. In another use case, maybe you are thinking of building e-commerce search. That's a use case where customizing the UI to be exactly the way that you want it is really, really important to facilitate that smooth search-based customer experience. You can use Answers Headless React to create e-commerce search and search things like your products, your promotions, or maybe your rewards. And then finally, maybe you're actually building some sort of app where you'd like search to be an integral component, and you're building that using React Native. This is another way to incorporate search into a React-based project. Taking a bit of a deeper dive into one of those use cases, e-commerce search. That's a use case where having AI-powered search is really valuable. And it's great to have a simple and straightforward way to build that custom e-commerce UI. And that's because search is such an integral part of the online shopping experience. People who search are more than 2 times more likely to convert and actually spend 3 times more than users online who don't search, because search is such an integral part to the process of online shopping. And having an AI-powered search as opposed to a simple keyword search actually streamlines that digital journey and helps you to deliver a true Ask Me Anything experience, taking advantage of all of the AI and machine learning powered features that we have in Answers. Things like being able to answer questions directly with snippets or pricing information or calories, as well as taking advantage of natural language processing to really understand what are the requirements for this user and the product that they're looking for, and how can we surface results that actually meet all of those needs. And then finally, with e-commerce search, it's a use case where being able to analyze your consumer behavior is particularly important. And that is a big benefit of AI search with Answers, being able to use those real-time insights about what customers are searching for and ultimately what are their journeys to converting. And then using that to make business decisions, like maybe you need to expand some product lines or improve your marketing and more. There's a lot of different entities that you might add to your e-commerce experience to make that content searchable. Of course, you might have people looking for products and services on your search page, but maybe you also want to add information about upcoming launches or promotions that are ongoing, sales, or maybe a rewards program that you have. Really, the opportunities are endless, and there's a lot that you can build into e-commerce search, which is why it's great that Answers Headless React makes it really easy to build those custom front ends. So a lot of information there, and it really comes to life when you see it live. That's why I am very pleased to welcome up Aaron Pavlik, our developer evangelist, to walk us through a demo.
Thanks, Ariana. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen now is something that Ariana alluded to earlier, which is the React site search starter. This is a repository that uses Answers Headless, but it contains some components that are pre-built so that I don't have to build everything from scratch. That includes the search bar and some of the different universal and vertical search layouts. So I can choose to use as little or as many of the components in here as I like. In here, it explains how to fork the repo, clone it for yourself, and then you can configure your Answers experience in a couple different files. In Answers Headless config, you can provide your API key and your experience key to start pulling search results from the Answers API. The routing config is an easy way to basically map the different verticals in your search experience. So you can have a different page for, whether that's product or FAQ vertical. And so I will get into a little bit of the code here. I've cloned this repository and I've been developing with it locally. So if I run npm start here, you can see the experience that I've been building. And so I was able to build some location card components here that are tied to my map component on the right. So whenever I hover over a location, I get the nice little highlighted pin effect on the map on the right. And then I also was able to build a carousel component down here where I have my different workout classes. And say I want to add a new vertical to my universal results page. Many of you are familiar with our Answers configuration. So I can actually add a new vertical here for trainers. I'm going to add location, linked location name as a searchable field, have that as text search. So I can tie that to my Manhattan search query. So if I go back to my site and I refresh the page, you'll see that my trainers are appearing in a section of the universal search, but I don't want it to look like that. I want to style it more similar to how I have the classes styled down here. So I can go over to my code and in my universal search results, I can customize the universal page for trainers, have it use the carousel section. I need to import my trainer card. So I've written a custom trainer card component and I'm going to use the carousel section I'm already using for classes. So if I save that and come back here and refresh my page, now I have a nice carousel for my trainers that teach my classes. And then if I click the view all, looks like I go to a blank vertical page. So I need to add a new page for the trainers vertical. So I will do that. Trainers page .tsx. And I will just quickly, this is a new React functional component. I'm also going to add one of the built-in hooks here to basically populate the page whenever I initially reach it. Need to import the vertical results pre-built component, and that will display trainer cards. This is actually the wrong vertical results. So now that I've imported all of that, I need to then tie it to my route configuration so that whenever I click on that view all link, it will navigate to my new trainers page. So whenever the trainer's path is separated or specified in the URL, sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. Just give me 1 second.
The fun of live coding.
Yeah,
I hate
exactly.
typing live, so doing the code live is another beast.
Sorry about that. Just give me 1 second here and I should be able to get this working. Okay. I copied and pasted something wrong there, but you can see that now I do have my trainer's vertical page. It is appearing. The styling isn't exactly how I want it. So if I go back to my code, it's pretty easy to, in my page, I can pass some custom CSS here. And this is actually using Tailwind CSS, which is a really nice utility for makes CSS and styling a lot easier. And let's get kind of like a grid effect here. So I'm going to add flex and flex. Yeah. And when I do that, now I have like a nicer grid layout for my trainers, and just want to center this. Okay, so that's a little better. So I could continue to add some more styling, add some filters and facets here. But for now, I will show you a vertical page that I've spent a little more time with. And you can see here that I have some custom facets. So if I go with yoga classes in the Lower East Side, instead of doing our typical NLP pill-like filters up here, I was able to replace that with this custom sentence based on the filters that I've applied, and I was able to replace the checks with some custom images here for my different class types. And so that's all I have to demonstrate today, and I'll pass it back to Ariana.
Thank you so much, Aaron. That was a really helpful demo. Hopefully it gave everyone a better idea of all the possibilities you have when it comes to building with Answers Headless React. If you have any more questions or you want to learn a little bit more about the different features that came out as part of our Winter 21 release, there's a lot of information available on our Hitchhikers site. That's hitchhikers.yext.com, where you'll be able to find things like new modules for training on some of these topics, new guides, including guides that walk through all of the steps of implementing with Answers Headless React, as well as taking advantage of the site starter. To learn about all the other features that came out in Winter 21, I recommend checking out the release notes, as well as new blog posts and web pages on yext.com that can give a little bit more information. And of course, if you have any questions after this webinar or as you're implementing, strongly recommend you check out the community on hitchhikers.yext.com, where you can see questions that other hitchhikers have asked, as well as ask your own to work through some of those live coding questions you may have. As I mentioned earlier, this was the fourth installment in our Winter 21 webinar series, where we went through some of the headline items from our most recent product release. If you'd like to see any ones that you may have missed, they're now available all on demand on our Yext YouTube channel. You can learn a little bit more about consumer authorization. We had a workshop on connectors, as well as a webinar about modernizations to listings. So definitely check those out if you weren't able to join live. And with that, let's hear from our Q&A. Any questions that we have, Nick?
Yeah, it looks like we've got a couple, but just as a reminder, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop those into the Q&A feature. So let's get started here. First question, is there a possibility to use headless React in a Node.js server-side rendering context? Aaron or Rose, I think that might be for you. All right, looks like we might need to get back to you on that one. That's a good question. Oh, you stumped the experts, so extra points there. We've got a question from coming in here as well about, is it possible to point headless React library to sandbox environments to test headless React?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So if I'll actually share my screen again quickly. Can you see that, Nick? Did I share the right screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's a file in the React site starter called Answers Headless config. And there is a parameter that you can add to this called endpoints. And here, I don't have them available this minute, but you can basically add the sandbox endpoints for making universal vertical searches or autocomplete to the sandbox endpoints instead of production endpoints. And even if you're not using the site starter, you can add this config to your own React application and provide those endpoints, and it will point to your sandbox account.
Perfect. Thanks for that. And looks like we've got one more question here. So this person loved your experience, Aaron, and is wondering, what are some of the next things that you're thinking about building with headless React?
Yeah, so I actually was messing around with the IMDb movie APIs. So I'm working on a cool movie search based on some of the data there. Previously I've used Answers Headless React. I've used that library in a React Native application to build a Pokédex for my iPhone. So those are a couple of things that I've worked on, and I'm looking forward to documenting all those different processes and writing up about my experience and sharing those on Hitchhikers.
Awesome. Yeah, I've seen the Pokédex. Looks pretty cool. One more question. This may be for you, Rose, and maybe more of a roadmap thing. Are there any other libraries for PHP frameworks?
Yeah, definitely something we're considering for the future. We don't have anything on the immediate roadmap, but I can definitely take that as a future request.
Yeah, and just to plug our Hitchhikers Ideas board, if you have other libraries that you think would be great, check out the Hitchhikers Ideas board. You can find it obviously on Hitchhikers, and then from the top nav, you can find ideas, and there you can actually plug in any feature requests or updates or things that you might be interested in. And our product team is constantly monitoring that board. You can also comment on other similar ideas. So that's a really great place to go if you have any ideas for features or have any update ideas. All right, I think that's all the questions that we have here today. As a reminder, this is going to be recorded. We'll send out a recording. If for some reason you don't get it, you should be able to find it on our YouTube channel by the end of the week. And I really wanted to thank you all for joining. I wanted to thank Aaron, Ariana, and Rose for taking us through some live content, for showcasing some of the value of the headless React, and definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions in the future. Thank you all so much for joining.